that acceptance is something that we all should aspire to, and tolerance is sort of the bare minimum of how we maybe should be treating someone else. And I want to make something very clear. In the remaining time that I have, I'm only going to be talking about and emphasizing the importance of tolerance. And some people have had a real problem with that. They go, Mark, why are you talking about tolerance? Isn't accepting someone so much more powerful than just tolerating someone? And I couldn't agree more. However, in my life, for the past 20 years, when I've gone out in public, I have found that there's so many people that don't even meet that basic threshold of tolerance, that basic level of how we should maybe treat someone else. And so I really believe, if you want to be an accepting person, you have to have a strong foundation of being a tolerant one. So that's why I'm going to be talking about tolerance. And instead of using the word tolerance, I'm going to use a different word, in fact, a different phrase. And that is live and let live. Has anyone ever heard this before? Live and let live? I did not invent this, so just be very clear about that, okay? But to me, that's what tolerance really is. They're all really mild stories. I can shrug them off my shoulder, I can even laugh them off. But I have run into a much more serious problem. And that happened the day before my 17th birthday. And I was living in St. Louis at the time, and my friends and I were going to a sleepaway camp in Indianapolis. And my one friend had this great idea of hopping on a Greyhound bus. Has anyone been on a Greyhound bus before? A delightful experience it was, wasn't it? Okay, just checking. So the thing is, we hopped on the bus in St. Louis. We got to Indianapolis. I went to this one-week camp. It was amazing. But on the way back, I ran into a real serious problem at the Indianapolis Greyhound bus station. Now again, I was just about to turn 17. My Tourette's was really bad. And there also happened to be a lot of black people that were in the Greyhound bus station. And you can imagine that I was causing quite some ruckus. Well, luckily, everything was sort of okay. And then it was time to board the bus. And I got in line, and there was a black woman who was in front of me. And I was ticking the N-word, and she was obviously offended, and rightfully so. I mean, I was saying some very, very offensive words. And I tried to explain to her my Tourette syndrome. And the piece of paper that you all have, I handed her that piece of paper, and she refused to read it. And luckily, for my sake, that situation fizzled out very quickly. She boarded the bus, and then I boarded the bus, and there was a bus driver, a black woman, who was the bus driver. And right before I boarded, I told her, I go, ma'am, my name's Marc, Elliot, I have Tourette syndrome, I just want to give you a heads up. And she looked at me, and she's like, look, don't worry about it. So I took a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, I'm with 6 of my friends, we're going to get on this bus, we're going to make it back to St. Louis, and everything is going to be A-okay. So we all get on, we all sit down, the bus driver gets on, and then she gets on the intercom, and she started to make an announcement about the procedures and the exits for the bus. And at the end of the announcement, she said, I want to let everyone know, there's a young man on this bus, his name is Marc Elliot, and he has Tourette syndrome, and it would be great if we all could be understanding. And I got out of my chair, I did this little Miss America wave so everyone could see who I was. And as soon as the bus driver hung up the intercom, the woman who had heard me in line earlier stood up and said, well, how come he can say the N-word? And the bus driver looked at me and she's like, well, I didn't know you say that word. I was like, ma'am, I do, I'm really sorry, I can't help it. And she said to me verbatim, either you put a cotton ball in your mouth or you get the hell off my bus. And I said, okay. And I walked off the bus with the bus driver. And to make another really long story short, after 4 hours, 6 or 7 police officers and the local news station, Greyhound Bus Line came out with the official statement that Marc Elliot was not allowed back on the bus. And I had to find my own ride home back to St. Louis from Indianapolis. Even after informing and educating these Greyhound Bus officials, they continued to make assumptions about who I was as a person, and they turned those assumptions into the ultimate action of kicking me off the bus. And they chose not to live and let live. Now I should note, this was by far the craziest thing that's ever happened in my life. This does not happen on a day-to-day basis. But it really was the first time that I realized that, hey, I don't live in this bubble anymore, where everyone's going to be understanding and everyone's going to be tolerant of Marc Elliot. And it was because of that incident I said to myself, not only do I need to educate people about Tourette syndrome, but about people's differences in general. And that's really why I'm up on this stage today. Now, I tell you all of these stories, starting with the British woman that I met at my car rental, to the woman at Wendy's, the custodian in the bathroom, the kids at McDonald's, the doctors in the restaurant, and this bus story. I tell you all of them not because I want you to feel bad for me, but simply because they illustrate so well how there were these individuals who made so many assumptions about another individual, that individual being me, and they turned those assumptions into an action. And here's what really happened. These people let their ignorance, and I do not mean ignorance in a negative way, they simply let their lack of understanding of someone else's life dictate their actions. And they chose not to live and let live. And this brings me to the key step to becoming a more tolerant individual, and it is super simple, and here it is. The key step to becoming more tolerant is simply recognize that you make assumptions. Yes. Recognize that you make assumptions about people that are different than you. And here's what I mean. When you guys go in your own life and you see someone that is so different than you, maybe they just look different, maybe they have different skin color, maybe they have a different sexual orientation, maybe they have Tourette syndrome, maybe they have sanctuaries, maybe they're just the annoying stranger. Have you ever met the annoying stranger? Just me? Okay. Anyways, when you encounter this individual in life, you can think whatever you want about that person. I mean, we are all human.